The streets of Nairobi. I never seen such fervor, such unrelenting passion, from the heart of Kibra to the lush avenues of Westlands. Young voices rose in a unified chorus, demanding change. They were the generation born into a digital world, where information flowed like water and walls of secrecy crumbled under the weight of truth. This was the uprising of the Gen Zs, a movement that threatened to reshape the very fabric of Kenyan politics. I was there, a part of the wave, a witness to the upheaval. It started with a spark, a viral video exposing corruption at the highest levels. The anger spread like wildfire, igniting protests across the nation. We gathered in numbers too vast to ignore. Our banners raised high, our voices a symphony of defiance. We believed with the fervor of youth that we could bring about real change. But the ruling class was not so easily dislodged. They were seasoned players in the game of power, adept at manipulation and control. As our movement grew, so did their efforts to stifle it. They used every tool at their disposal: intimidation, propaganda, and most insidiously, co-optation. It was a dark day when the announcement came. The president, in a bid to quell the unrest, had dissolved his cabinet. For a fleeting moment, hope surged through our ranks, but it was quickly dashed when the new appointments were revealed. Among the new cabinet secretaries were figures from the opposition. Those who had once stood with us, now seemingly swayed by the allure of power. The betrayal cut deep. These were the leaders we had trusted, the ones who had spoken our language and championed our cause. Now, they sat at the table with those we had risen against, their voices muted by the weight of their new titles. The unity we had forged began to fracture as doubt crept in. Could we still trust our own? Was our movement doomed to be co-opted and crushed? Yet, amidst the disillusionment, there were those who refused to be silenced. New leaders emerged from within our ranks, voices untainted by the lure of political power. They spoke with renewed vigor, reminding us of our mission and the strength of our collective voice. We had started this fight, and we would see it through. The city became a battleground of ideologies. On one side, the old guard, fortified their new allies, clung desperately to their seats of power. On the other, we the youth, driven by a vision of a just and transparent Kenya. The tension was palpable, a tangible force that crackled in the air, threatening to ignite at any moment. We knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The ruling class had shown their willingness to adapt, to morph their tactics to maintain their grip on power. But we were resilient, a generation born into struggle, and we had learned to adapt as well. Our fight was not just for today, but for the future we envisioned. A future where our voices mattered, where justice prevailed, and where the old ways of corruption and deceit were finally laid to rest. As we prepared for the next wave of protests, I looked around at my comrades, their faces a mix of determination and hope. The ruling class had joined forces against us, but we were undeterred. This was our moment, our fight, and we would not back down. Change was on the horizon, and we were ready to seize it. The tension in the air was almost palpable as we marched once more towards Uhuru Park, the symbolic art of our resistance. Our banners fluttered in the wind, emblazoned with slogans demanding accountability, transparency, and genuine change. The sun was a blazing orb in the sky, casting her ash light on the injustice we sought to overturn. As we neared the park, the sight of police barricades met our eyes. Armed officers stood in formation, their faces masked by helmets, their presence a stark reminder of the state's readiness to suppress dissent. Yet, we marched on, undeterred by the show of force. Our chants grew louder, echoing off the surrounding buildings, a resonant cry for a better tomorrow. The speeches began, delivered by our new leaders, those who had risen from our own ranks, uncompromised and resolute. They spoke of the future we dreamed of, a Kenya free from the shackles of corruption and nepotism. Each word ignited a spark within us, fueling our determination to continue the fight. Suddenly, a hush fell over the crowd as a figure approached the stage. It was David, a former opposition leader who had been recently appointed to the cabinet. His presence was a surprise, and a wave of unease rippled through the assembly. Had he come to defend his new position, to justify his betrayal? David took the microphone, his face a mask of weariness and resolve. He began to speak, his voice carrying a blend of remorse and defiance. "I stand before you not as a member of the government, but as a fellow Kenyan who believes in the cause we once shared," he said. "I know my appointment has caused distress and anger, but I assure you, I have not abandoned our mission. I am inside the system to fight for us from within." The crowd was silent, weighing his words. Some cheered, hopeful that an ally remained within the halls of power. Others were skeptical, wary of another layer of deceit. The fracture within our movement was evident, a divide that threatened to weaken our collective strength. In that moment, I realized that our struggle was not just against the entrenched elite, but also against the seeds of division sown among us. We had to remain united, even as we navigated the complexities of political maneuvering. David's speech ended, and he stepped down, leaving the crowd in contemplation. As night fell, the park was illuminated by the soft glow of candles held aloft. It was a vigil for our dreams, a silent promise to continue the fight no matter the obstacles. We sang songs of freedom and resilience, our voices blending into a harmonious declaration of our unwavering commitment. The next morning, the news headlines were ablaze with stories of our protest, the images of our unity broadcast across the nation. The government's response was swift and predictable. Denials, accusations, and attempts to undermine our credibility. But we were prepared. Our movement had grown savvy, using social media and underground networks to counter the state's narrative, to keep the truth alive. Days turned into weeks, and the struggle continued. The ruling class tightened their grip, but cracks began to show. The pressure we exerted, both from the streets and within the government, was taking its toll. Whispers of reform emerged, tentative steps towards the change we demanded. It was a slow and odious process, but with each small victory, our resolve strengthened. The uprising of the Gen Zs was not just a fleeting moment of rebellion, but a sustained effort to reshape our nation. We had learned that change was not a singular event, but a continuous journey, one that required perseverance, unity, and unwavering belief in our cause. As I looked out over the city from my rooftop one evening, the lights of Nairobi twinkling in the distance, I felt a surge of pride. We were the generation that refused to be silenced, the ones who dared to dream of a better Kenya. Our fight was far from over, but we were ready, united, resilient, and determined. We will forge the future we envisioned, one step at a time.